And then the other question that I had was about Shedeur not playing yesterday. And I'm pretty sure he mentioned in the locker room that it wasn't his decision. Um, and so, I mean, if he had said to you guys, hey, I want to play, I can play, I mean, would that have factored into this at all? Or what was the thinking behind that and how'd that go?
Yo, you're not going to believe what just slipped out of Kevin Stefanski's mouth on live TV. The Cleveland Browns head coach basically just admitted they're treating Shedeur Sanders like he's radioactive, and bro, the receipts are wild. We're talking about a franchise that allegedly wanted a second-round pick to trade a fifth-round quarterback. Let that sink in. A fifth-rounder? For a second-round pick? Nah, something ain't adding up. And when Myles Garrett is out here throwing helmets on the sideline, frustrated as hell, and Stefanski's sitting there cracking jokes like everything's cool, man, this whole situation is about to blow wide open. Buckle up, because what we're about to break down is going to have you questioning everything the Browns have been feeding us. Look, let me paint you the full picture here, because this story has layers, like an onion that makes you cry the more you peel it back. We all know Shedeur Sanders has been in this weird limbo situation with the Browns. Drafted in the fifth round, hyped up as a potential franchise quarterback, son of a legend. And yet, nothing. He's barely seen the field, and when he does get a chance, it feels like the whole organization is holding their breath, waiting for him to fail. But here's where it gets spicy. The New York Jets, yeah, that dumpster fire in the Meadowlands, are apparently targeting Shedeur hard. Like, really hard. They want him in New York, the Big Apple, Broadway. And honestly, that makes perfect sense for a guy like Shedeur. He's got the personality, the swag, the confidence that New York fans would eat up. Plus, let's be real, the Jets need something to be excited about after years of quarterback purgatory. Now, according to reports that are making mainstream media rounds, the Cleveland Browns allegedly told the Jets they wanted a second-round pick to let Shedeur go. Read that again. A second-round pick. For a quarterback they drafted in the fifth round. For a guy they won't even put on the field. For someone they're treating like he's got the plague. You know what that tells me? That tells me everything we've been saying from day one is true. Shedeur Sanders was blackballed. Straight up. There's no other explanation for this madness. How do you justify asking for a second-round pick for a fifth-round quarterback you refuse to play? It doesn't make football sense. It doesn't make business sense. It only makes sense if there's something else going on behind the scenes, something the Browns don't want to admit publicly. Think about it like this. If Shedeur was truly just another late-round project quarterback who wasn't ready, why would the Jets even be interested? Why would any team be willing to give up assets for him? The market doesn't lie, bro. Teams don't trade picks for guys they don't believe in. So either the Browns are sitting on a gold mine and too stubborn to admit it, or they're playing games with this kid's career for reasons that have nothing to do with football. And that's where Kevin Stefanski comes in. This man held a press conference that was equal parts comedy and tragedy. Reporters are asking him real questions. Questions about why his offense is struggling, why Jerry Jeudy can't get targets, why they're not putting their best players in positions to succeed. And Stefanski is out here giving the most generic, coach speak answers you've ever heard. That he's talking about putting players in better positions and being efficient and explosive, but like, bro, you've had 9 games to figure this out. 9. At what point do we stop accepting these cookie-cutter responses and demand actual accountability? Because while he's busy deflecting in press conferences, his team is falling apart at the seams. Myles Garrett, arguably the best defensive player in the entire NFL, the face of your franchise, the guy who literally carries your defense on his back, was so frustrated during the game that he threw his helmet on the sideline. Not a cute little toss. Not a, I'm mildly annoyed gesture. Nah, this man whipped that helmet into the ground like he was trying to split the earth open. That's the level of frustration we're talking about. And you know what Kevin Stefanski had to say about it? He basically brushed it off. Made it seem like it was no big deal. Like Myles was just having a little emotional moment that they'd worked through. Here's the thing though, when your best player is that visibly upset, when he's lost all composure on national television, that's not just frustration. That's a man who knows the ship is sinking and feels powerless to stop it. Myles Garrett signed with the Browns to win. He restructured his contract to help the team. He's been nothing but loyal to Cleveland. And what has he gotten in return? A dysfunctional offense that can't stay on the field. A coaching staff that seems more interested in protecting their jobs than actually winning games. And a front office that's making questionable decisions left and right. But let's get back to Shedeur, because this is where Stefanski really exposes himself. A reporter straight up asked him about why Shedeur didn't play. And you know what the official reason was? A back injury. Shedeur came in Saturday with back stiffness. They put him through a pre-game warm-up on Sunday and decided he wasn't ready to go. Cool. Makes sense on the surface, right? Except, Shedeur himself reportedly said in the locker room that it wasn't his decision. Let me repeat that. The quarterback said he didn't make the call to sit out, which means the coaching staff and medical team made that decision for him. Now, I'm not saying they should throw an injured player out there. That would be reckless and dangerous. But the way this whole thing was handled, the vague explanations, the lack of transparency, it all smells fishy. Here's what really gets me. The reporter followed up and asked Stefanski point blank, why wouldn't you give him an opportunity to go in there and play, just to see if it does anything to the offense? It's a fair question, right? Your offense is struggling. You've got a young quarterback who's hungry to prove himself. Why not take a shot? And Stefanski's response, my focus is where we are right now. That's not my focus. Bro, what? That is where you are right now. You're 3-6, your season is spiraling, your offense can't score, and you've got a quarterback controversy brewing. How is exploring all your options not your focus? Unless you've already made up your mind that Shedeur isn't part of the plan. And if that's the case, why are you holding him hostage? Why not just trade him to the Jets or whoever wants him and be done with it?
Told the Jets that they wanted a second-round pick to let Shedeur go. Now, if that is the case, and that is true, everything we've been saying is true. Shedeur was blackballed. This whole thing he was blackballed. How the hell y'all want a second-round pick from a fifth-round quarterback for a fifth-round quarterback? Oh, he was hella blackballed.
This is what drives people crazy about the NFL. The politics. The games behind the games. Shedeur Sanders is a talented quarterback who's being buried on a depth chart for reasons that have nothing to do with his ability. And instead of doing right by him, instead of either giving him a real shot or trading him to a team that will, the Browns are playing hardball, asking for inflated compensation and basically pricing him out of any potential move. You know who suffers in this scenario? Shedeur. His development is being stunted. His confidence could be taking hits. His rookie contract is ticking away while he sits on the bench learning nothing. This is a kid who started multiple seasons at Jackson State in Colorado. He's won big games under pressure. He's performed on the biggest stages. And now he's collecting splinters in Cleveland while Dillon Gabriel, who's played in 4 games and shown nothing special, gets all the reps. And don't even get me started on Dillon Gabriel. Look, I'm not here to trash a young player who's trying his best, but let's call it what it is. The Browns were apparently excited to draft him in the 3rd round, but in 4 starts, he hasn't shown any of the traits that got them excited in the first place. And when reporters asked Stefanski about that, he gave the most political answer ever. It's about 11 guys on the field and us as coaches doing our job. Translation, it's not Dillon's fault. It's everyone's fault. Don't blame me. Don't blame him. Blame the collective. That's the problem with Stefanski's entire approach. There's never any accountability. There's never any urgency. Everything is always, we need to be better, or we're working on it, or it's a team effort. Yeah, no kidding, it's a team effort. But as the head coach, you set the tone. You make the decisions. You put the players in position to win. And right now, you're failing at all of that. Let's talk about Jerry Jeudy for a second, because this is another example of the Browns' dysfunction. Jeudy is supposed to be their best wide receiver. He was brought in to be the guy, and in their last game, he didn't get a single target until early in the 4th quarter. Let that marinate. Your best offensive weapon is invisible for 3 quarters of football. When asked about it, Stefanski said, I'm frustrated that we don't get the ball to Jerry, our best wide receiver, earlier in that game and throughout that game. But then he immediately followed it up with excuses. Are there always reasons for those type of things? Sure. Bro, what reasons? You're the offensive play caller. You design the plays. You decide who gets the ball and when. If your best receiver isn't touching the football, that's on you. You can't sit there and say you're frustrated, but then act like it's out of your control. That's not leadership. That's deflection. This whole press conference was a masterclass in how not to handle adversity. Stefanski talked about taking a breath during the bye week. He talked about being excited about the challenge. He said they need their best players to play great. But he never once took ownership. He never once said, I need to be better. I need to make better calls. I need to put my guys in better positions. And maybe that's the real problem. Maybe Stefanski has become so comfortable in his role that he's forgotten what it means to be accountable. He's got job security for now, but how long is that going to last? Mike Vrabel is apparently calling him a gimmick coach behind the scenes. The media is starting to ask tougher questions. The players are visibly frustrated. At some point, ownership is going to have to make a decision. But let's bring this back to Shedeur because he's the one getting screwed the most in all of this. This kid did everything right. He followed his dad to Jackson State and helped build that program. He went to Colorado and dealt with all the noise, all the criticism, all the pressure that comes with being Deion Sanders' son. He declared for the draft and got selected by an NFL team. And now he's being held in organizational purgatory by a coaching staff that doesn't seem to have a plan for him. The trade rumors with the Jets should be music to Shedeur's ears. New York would give him a fresh start. They'd give him an opportunity to compete. They'd give him a chance to show what he can do on a big stage. And honestly, the Jets need him just as much as he needs them. Their quarterback situation has been a revolving door of disappointment for years. Shedeur could be the answer they've been searching for, but the Browns don't want to make it easy. They want to squeeze every ounce of value out of a player they refuse to use. They want to act like Shedeur is this incredibly valuable asset, while simultaneously treating him like he's expendable. You can't have it both ways, Cleveland. Either he's worth protecting and developing, or he's trade bait. Pick one. Here's the thing that really bothers me about this whole situation. Shedeur has handled all of this with nothing but class and professionalism. He hasn't complained publicly. He hasn't demanded a trade. He hasn't thrown anyone under the bus. He's just quietly waiting for his opportunity, staying ready, and keeping his head down. That's the mark of a real professional. That's the mark of someone who's going to succeed in this league regardless of the obstacles thrown in his way. So, when Kevin Stefanski sits there in that press conference and dodges questions, makes excuses, and refuses to give straight answers about Shedeur's situation, it's disrespectful, not just to Shedeur, but to everyone who's been watching this unfold. We're not stupid. We can see what's happening. We can read between the lines. The Browns drafted Shedeur knowing who he was, knowing what came with him, and knowing the attention he'd bring. And now that things aren't working out the way they imagined, they're trying to cut bait without taking any responsibility. They're trying to make it seem like it's a football decision when in reality, it feels like something much deeper. And you know what? I hope Shedeur gets out of Cleveland. I hope he lands with the Jets or whoever else wants him, and I hope he balls out. I hope he becomes everything the Browns thought he couldn't be. Because the best revenge is success. And Shedeur has all the tools to be successful if he's just given a fair shot. As for the Browns, they're going to keep spinning their wheels. They're going to keep making excuses. Stefanski is going to keep giving these vanilla press conferences where he says a whole lot of nothing. Myles Garrett is going to keep carrying the defense while the offense struggles. And at the end of the season, they're going to be sitting at home watching the playoffs wondering what went wrong. But we know what went wrong. They got in their own way. They let politics and egos dictate football decisions. They held on to a player they didn't want to use instead of doing right by him. And most importantly, they wasted another year of Myles Garrett's prime on a team that refuses to commit to winning. Here's my question for you, though. Do you think Shedeur was actually injured, or was this just another excuse to keep him off the field? Do you think the Browns are asking for too much in trade talks, or do they genuinely believe he's worth a second-round pick? And most importantly, where do you think Shedeur ends up next? The Jets? Somewhere else? Let me know in the comments because this story is far from over. At the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders deserves better than what Cleveland has given him. He deserves a coaching staff that believes in him. He deserves an organization that's willing to develop him. And he deserves a fair opportunity to prove he belongs in this league. Because if you ask me, the Browns are going to regret how they handled this situation. Mark my words. Look, the writing's on the wall. Kevin Stefanski exposed his own hand in that press conference whether he meant to or not. The Browns don't have a plan for Shedeur. They never did. And now that the trade rumors are heating up, they're scrambling to save face while trying to maximize his value. But the truth is, they've already lost. They've lost the locker room's trust. They've lost the fans' patience, and most importantly, They're about to lose a quarterback who could have been something special in their system if they'd just given him a chance to keep your eyes on this situation, because it's about to get real interesting real fast. The trade deadline is coming up, the Jets are circling, and Shedeur's future is hanging in the balance. If you want to stay updated on all the latest Shedeur Sanders news and Browns drama, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on where Shedeur should go, and let's keep this conversation going. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.